Stupid fat habit defects, precious. Yes.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. Go and click subscribe. We post 3 videos a week, so check out asart.space for all the audio and video links. So Nick, the Samwise recasting, did we already talk about how he might make a good Samwise, or it just happened that when Bryan Seeker recast him, we're like, oh, we talked about 1917. I forgot how that came about.
When I watched 1917, I'm like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of Lord of the Rings. Like
That's
two
right,
guys going through the trenches, going through Mordor, you know what I mean? Like they're doing this
point A to point B, pretty much they know exactly where they're going for the most part, yeah.
Exactly, with the task at hand. I was like, man, this is so Lord of the Rings. And then,
that's true.
I mean, it makes sense because J.R.R. Tolkien served in World War One. A lot of the stories of Lord of the Rings are based off of World War One and how he was such a nature dude, but then the industrial age was taken over and the whole thing like that. That's basically what we see with Treebeard when Treebeard. Freebird, yeah. Anyways, but that's what you see when they attack the Tower of Isengard and stuff like that. And it was a whole like nature fighting back kind of stuff. But when Bryan Seeker mentioned, when I watched his video and I saw who he casted, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect for Sam. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, John, we have to do this. You're like, really, Nick? I'm like, John, yes, precious, we have to do it.
Yeah, and you know what? And it did fit well because I didn't immediately draw that parallel between 1917 and Lord of the Rings, but Nick did. And then as soon as I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, obviously getting from point A to point B is nothing new in a story, but at the same time, what happens in the middle is what's important. But you're following these two characters really close in 1917. They're following these two characters obviously sporadically along with other people, but you're following them making that journey to Mordor. So it did fit, and he fits the Sam role pretty well as far as his complexion and kind of his, I don't want to say body type because he's definitely is thinner or things like that.
I mean, there's different face shapes, right? He just has a rounder face shape. You know what I mean? Like there's some that are long and narrow and stuff, and like Aragorn, we found out he had an egg-shaped head when we did the deepfake. Yeah. You guys should check it out if you guys haven't seen it. Egghead.
And it's funny because you don't really know how they're going to go until you run. I mean, if someone has very distinct facial features, like if you try to put Steve Buscemi's face on like a thick person's face, okay, that's not going to go well because he has a very slender, so there's certain faces that are going to work naturally than others, but sometimes you never know until you run it. But from the get-go, when you mentioned that's who Bryan Seeker had kind of picked out, like, oh, that seems like it would be a good fit.
So let's watch it, precious. Come on, roll it, precious. Yes.
You'll make him sick, you will. There's only one way to eat a brace of conies.
Stupid fat habit.
What we need's a few good taters.
What's taters, precious? What's taters, huh?
Potatoes. Lovely big golden chips. Even you couldn't say no to that.
Oh, yes, we could. Spoiling nice fish. Raw and wriggling.
You're hopeless.
So when we were running this one, we actually were running 3 deepfakes at the same time. So we were doing the Aragorn, Galadriel, and then Sam at the same time, right? And so we were kind of trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to all at the same time. Do you remember when we very first watched that one, like right away, we were like, oh, this is working or it's not working? Do you remember what our first impressions were when we just saw the rough version of it in progress?
We liked certain frames. There was like the side profiles where it was like struggling, but there was some where we were like, whoa, this is doing really well. And obviously it's the ones we picked compared to a couple of them were like, which we'll show right now. But it's actually pretty complicated shot. Like if you go back to Galadriel, it's pretty much like the same angle and perspective. Aragorn's pretty much the same, nothing too crazy. But this guy, Sam's like looking at him and like potatoes and and it's like the whole like battering back and forth. So he was like turning his head and he's like, oh, you're hopeless. What I mean? It's so classic.
I remember some of those shots were difficult because you were getting shadows being cast on the character. And the deepfake software, based on the transfer mode we were using, did try and match those. I can't remember if those made it in the final cut or not, but we'll maybe show some of the, either in this video or in one of the failed videos that we always enjoy putting together. We'll kind of show those shots,
We love
even
our
if they didn't work.
videos.
But yeah, they're as much fun, if not more fun, than the actually successful shots. But overall, it worked pretty well. Whenever this particular type of deepfake that we're running, the architecture, I guess you'd call it, it struggles with side profiles, so we always knew those shots were going to be challenging. But it actually did a better job on some of those than others, but maybe not necessarily ones we're going to include in the final cut. But yeah, and obviously Sam or Sean Austin in Lord of the Rings was pretty, I think he was very light skinned, like kind of pale complexion, and this guy kind of tends to have that complexion as well. So, and if you had completely different skin tones, that's going to make for a really rough time because you're needing to match the skin tones to splice it. Remember, just the actual acting part of the face, not the side. So you have to blend those in, and if those don't match, then it's going to be really, really difficult. And
so if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We really enjoy working with Bryan Seeker, and by seeing your guys' response and stuff, it let us know that you guys want to see more of his deepfakes. So please comment down below, maybe some better ideas or just some crazier ideas. We have some Witcher ideas in mind and some other fun stuff in mind too. So leave it in the comments down below. We love your guys' comments. There's already been some good ones, as Eva Green as Yennefer from The Witcher, which we're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. There was another one. Oh man, there were so many good ones. There's so many down there. You guys are so good at leaving the comments.
And obviously we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but it's fun to do. One, it's just fun to like maybe put together like a poll or just hear everybody's ideas. And then it's just a fun conversation like, oh yeah, that would work. So it's kind of a fun thing. So so hopefully you've been enjoying what we're doing. Check out AsArt, that space for all the audio and video links. If you like what we're doing on YouTube, of course, subscribe on there. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next AsArt.